Welcome to Let's Talk Criterion, where we look exclusively at new and forthcoming releases from the collection in the US and UK. In this edition, we take a look at the King of the Monsters with the 1989 film Godzilla Vs Biollante, getting a 4K and Blu-ray release in the collection. Godzilla Vs Biollante is a 1989 Japanese kaiju film directed and written by Kazuki Omori, with special effects by Koichi Kawakita. It's distributed by Toho and produced under their subsidiary Toho Pictures, and it's the 17th film in the Godzilla franchise. The second film in the franchise's Heisei period, and it's a sequel to the 1984 film The Return of Godzilla. Now, the film itself stars Kunihiko Mitamura, Yoshiko Tanaka, Masanobu Takashima, Megumi Odaka, Toru Minegishi, Yasuko Sawaguchi, Toshiyuki Nagashima, Yoshiko Kuga, and Ryosuke Kaneda, also Koji Takahashi. Now, this was Odaka's first appearance in the Godzilla franchise as the character Miki Segusa. Now, in the film, corporations struggle for control over samples of Godzilla's cells, while the monster himself battles Biollante, a monster who's born from a combination of Godzilla's cells, the cells of a plant, and the cells of a human. Now, the idea originated from a public story writing contest, and it set a trend common to all Heisei era movies. That trend, of course, is in which Godzilla faces off against opponents who are capable of metamorphosing into new, progressively more powerful forms. Godzilla vs Biollante is good, especially for the Heisei era. It's held in high regard indeed among Godzilla movies in general. Surprisingly, it derives a lot of its profitable ambition from being a true sequel to Return of Godzilla, imagining what the world would be like after a giant monster attack. And we find that international corporate interests are competing for Godzilla's cells, whose magic properties have the potential to shift world power. Now, in the fictitious and ridiculous Middle Eastern country called Saudi, a nationalised oil firm plans to harvest the cell's immortality to grow vegetation in the desert, divesting the region of its reliance on a valuable but limited resource. Meanwhile, the American company Biomajor resorts to terrorism to claim these cells, as their science experiment would neutralise the threat posed by nuclear missiles. Now, somehow in the midst of this political spy thriller, we see a giant rose emerging from the sea, and Godzilla burns it with the heat ray. The plot is refreshingly complicated, ensuring the in-between parts are bristling with purpose. However, the characters occupying these parts are so ill-defined that their scenes appear to begin and end arbitrarily. And as always, Godzilla vs Biollante demarcates the human story from the Godzilla scenes, but it further divides this story into scenes of character and exposition. You know you're in character when the music is soft piano, and it's the ostensible leads Dr. Kirishima and Asuka who are chatting about the relationship by the beach. Now, that said, there's nothing quite like the image of Godzilla moving across the skyline at night, flame in its wake with that music playing, and the miniatures, of course, superimposed on well-chosen urban areas, like a pedestrian bridge in Osaka. They're all wonderful. Now, I love the setting for the first battle between Godzilla and Biollante, which feels like an arena with the fog and the spotlights along the edges shooting into the sky. Godzilla movies, working with their massive scale, sometimes luck into moments like this of awesome beauty. Successful metaphor or not, Biollante is a wonderful entry to the Godzilla bestiary, as there's just something uncanny about a mutating creature that takes the shape of its enemy, and those crocodile jaws are an otherworldly mockery of something already not off this earth. The puppet's massive, towering over Godzilla, and strangely shaped, and all hunched over. All in all, Godzilla vs Biollante is Kawakita's finest hour. The film isn't nearly as consistent as the rest of the work, while the spark-happy days are yet to come for the special effects director. Kenpachiro Sasuma returned to portray Godzilla, hoping to improve his performance by making it less anthropomorphic than in previous films. And suitmaker Nobuyuki Yasamaru created a Godzilla suit made specifically with Satsuma's measurements in mind, unlike the previous one, which was initially built for another performer, and it caused Satsuma some discomfort. The resulting 242-pound suit proved more comfortable than the last one, having a lower centre of gravity and more mobile legs, and there was a second 176-pound suit created for outdoor underwater scenes. The head's size was reduced and the whites around the eyes removed, and on the advice of story finalist Shinichiro Kobayashi, a double row of teeth was incorporated into the jaws. Now, to look at the less technical aspects of the film, Godzilla vs Biollante also excels with the film's pacing. There's no scenes dragging on here. The movie cycles through action sequences quickly to keep them from exciting for the viewer, while not so fast that the movie seems disorienting. And there are also breaks in the action sequences, allowing the story to develop. Each are interweaved well into the flow of the movie, while none of the segments feel like they are interrupting the unfolding mayhem. Like a lot of these movies, though, the soundtrack here is easily a highlight. Overall, Koichi Sugiyama does an outstanding job constructing some very beautiful tunes that fit the intended sequences perfectly. The background music in Saradia is a good example of this, while the movie's main theme is excellent as well. And there are also some obvious faults in the film, but it's still a very enjoyable ride nonetheless, and one that is required viewing for fans of the kaiju genre. Regardless, it's unfortunate though that the film didn't do as well at the box office as hoped, although in retrospect it did better than all but one of the Millennium entries, as its lackluster performance in theatres called for director Omori to go back to the drawing board by making a far campier follow-up to it. That was Godzilla vs King Ghidorah, 1991. As usual, the film comes new to the Criterion collection on a 4K UHD disc and accompanying Blu-ray, with the film and these special features. New audio commentary featuring film historian Sam Dayan, host of the podcast Eros and Massacre, and the co-editor of the book Revolution in 35mm. Making of programme from 1993 featuring director Kazuki Omori and special effects director Koichi Kawakita, among others. Short documentary from 1993 about the Biollante and Super X2 vehicle. Deleted special effects, TV spots and trailers, new English subtitle translation, and an essay by science fiction and horror film expert Jim Cirinella. And the cover art is by Eric Powell, which is quite striking, and it's based on the original poster art for the film. With a wild plot encompassing spies, psychic children, and bonkers biotechnology, and some of the coolest special effects in the history of Japanese cinema, Godzilla vs Biollante stands as a high point in the ever-evolving mythology of the King of the Monsters. This film's a running time of 104 minutes, and it comes in an aspect ratio of 1:5:1, and it comes to the collection as a 4K UHD and Blu-ray combo, releasing on Tuesday the 18th of March as Spine 1254. Next time on Let's Talk Criterion, we look at Chaplin's second feature from 1923, proving that beyond being a comic genius, he was an artist of immense sensitivity and human understanding. And that's A Woman of Paris, coming to the collection on Blu-ray. So until then, from me, as always, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.